Hi, OpenXML developers. This is Eric White. Today I'm going to go through the process of how to write an implementation of a method GetListItemText for HtmlConverter. In this project, in the Power Tools for OpenXML, we need to write a separate implementation of GetListItemText for many different languages and cultures. There are primarily three different varieties of numbered items where language and culture matter. There is cardinal text. So when you have items 1, 2, and 3, in English, it would be ONE 1, TWO 2, and THREE 3. Ordinal text is first, second, third, and ordinal is first, but it's spelled out 1 ST, second is 2 ND, and third is 3 RD, and this is for English. And of course, this is going to be different for every single language and culture. The process of implementing this for every language and culture is too big for any one person, and besides, I don't know all of the languages that you all know. You know your own language, and you'll know how to make the implementation of GetListItemText for your language and the varieties of cultures that go with that. So, for instance, you could make an implementation for German that also handles German for Germany and German for Switzerland and German for other cultures as appropriate. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through the process and make a little simple German implementation, although it's going to be very, very incomplete, and just show you how to get started in making an implementation of GetListItemText for your particular language and culture. So first of all, let's go in and let's show exactly what we mean by, first of all, language and culture, and second of all, what we mean by ordinal and cardinal text and ordinal text. I'm going to create a Word document and I'll call it test. And I'll make a little list of things. I'll call it 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Put some text in there. I'll come up here. I'll number these. I'll create a new number format, and I'm going to pick here, first of all, 1, 2, 3 for this list. And we can see, yes, we have 1, 2, and 3. And these are the cardinal text versions of numbering. Now I'll define another list. And this is first, second, third, and this is ordinal text. And finally, I'll define another list. And I'll pick this one. And these are the ordinals. And this is ordinal text up here. I'll go ahead and save this and close it. We don't particularly need this document. Now, if you're going to make an implementation of GetListItemText, you're going to want to get OpenXML Power Tools Core version 2.6.01 or later. I made a very small modification to the Core 2.6.0 for this particular task, so you're going to want 2.6.01 or later. I've already downloaded this version, so I'll extract everything. And we're going to want to go into the OpenXML Power Tools examples, and we're going to open up the example solution here. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to explain a little bit of how this code is put together. You are able to make an implementation of these three types of numbering systems without actually touching the source code for Power Tools for OpenXML. And the way that this happens is that in the example, or in any example, you can define a list of language cultures and then with a pointer to the method that does the implementation. And this code just goes in the example, and then you can make an implementation that also is separate from the rest of the Power Tools source code. So this way we can all work on this separately. I'll open this with Visual Studio 2012. You can also use 2013 for this. If we look in the source code for OpenXML Power Tools, we can see two implementations of GetListItemText. This first one is the default implementation, and this is two different things. First of all, it is those numbering systems that are language independent. In other words, Roman numerals, lowercase letters, uppercase letters, bullets, numbers, and so on. Then within there are three different cases. One is ordinals, and this is the first, second, third. Next, here's the implementation of cardinal text. So this is a numbered list that is 1, 2, 3 spelled out. And finally, here is the implementation for ordinal text, and this is in English, first, second, third spelled out. There's also an implementation as delivered of French. It's actually only partially implemented at this point in time. It's not a lot of work to actually make it a complete implementation, but I'll talk about that. I didn't actually, in this implementation, properly implement the ordinals. I only implemented ordinal text and cardinal text. Here is the method getListItemText, and it has three parameters going into it. First is the string with the language culture name. So if you're doing this for German for Germany, this language culture name would be DE-DE. If you're doing this for French for France, it would be FR-FR, and so on. There is a list of all of these language culture names on the Microsoft website. We can go find this. Here on the Microsoft MSDN website, you can find a list of all of the language culture names and their various display names and culture codes. We're mainly interested in these language culture names over here. So if I look for DE-DE, I can find German for Germany. And of course, there's DE-AT, which is German for Austria, and DE-LI, DE-LU, and DE-CH for Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, and Switzerland, respectively. So we're going to make a little sample implementation for German. It's not going to be complete at all, but I'll go through the process and show you how to get started making this implementation. And those of you who want to help out in this process so that you can get a more accurate conversion of docx to HTML for your particular language and culture, you can help contribute this code to the Power Tools for OpenXML. Let's take a quick look at the French implementation here. We see I've set up a number of different arrays of strings like 1 through 19, and I have another one which is 10. And then there's ordinals 1 through 19 and ordinals tenths and so on. You can set up these strings as appropriate to help you in your coding to make your method as short as possible, or as short as necessary, although there's no particular motivation to make it too awfully short. We just want to make it be clean code, so therefore it makes sense to set up some strings as appropriate so that your code doesn't contain too many duplicate strings. You then have this method getListItemText that takes the language culture name, the level number, and the level number, this is the actual number that you're going to convert to 1, 2, 3, or first, second, third, or 1ST, 2ND, 3RD, if you're going to do this in English, and it's going to be different for your particular language. And then finally, there's this num format, and it'll be cardinal text, or it'll be ordinal, or it'll be ordinal text. One more point is there are other numbering systems for Asian languages that those of you who are from those languages and cultures, I'd like you to implement those as appropriate so that we get as accurate a conversion of documents to HTML and CSS as possible for your cultures also. The way this works, let's go up into the HTML converter example. When you are setting up these HTML converter settings, there is this dictionary of list item implementations, and in this dictionary of list item implementations, you'll have the language culture name right here, and then you'll have a reference to a method that's actually going to do the actual implementation. So let's say that we're going to do an implementation for German. Right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to put in additional entries for additional languages and cultures. So here I've got one for Germany and another one for German for Switzerland, and they're both going to call GetListItemText in a class called ListItemTextGetter_DE, which I haven't created yet. So let's go create that class. So the easiest way to go create that class is start with another implementation, probably with this French implementation. So I'll copy and paste it, and I'm going to change this name here to GetListItemText_DE. Then I am going to come over to OpenXML Power Tools, and I'm going to add an existing item. And there's my GetListItemText_DE, and I'll add it to the project. Now what you're going to do is you'll be making these implementations, and then you'll be sending these implementations to me, and then I'll integrate them, and then we'll add them so that they are called by default in the actual Power Tools for OpenXML code. But in the meantime, I did it in this approach so that you can do these implementations without touching the Power Tools for OpenXML directly. So let's open the GetListItemText_DE.cs, and I'm going to change the class name here to ListItemTextGetter_DE. And I'll save that. And so now we can see it's now going to handle 3 different language culture combinations in this example: French for France, German for Germany, and German for Switzerland. Although right now for those for Germany or Switzerland, it's actually going to output French text, and that's what we want to alter in this source code so that it actually outputs German. Now, the next thing that we want to do is create a sample document that we can use for testing. I'll go into my examples folder, go into HtmlConverter folder, and I'm going to create a new document, a new Word document, and I'll call it test cardinal text CAR-DE. So this is going to be a document that is going to test the conversion of cardinal text for German. In order to properly set up this document, I'm going to want to have 1,100 items in this document that are numbered with cardinal text. Well, the easiest way to do that is to use Excel to create a list of numbers between 1 and 1,100, and then paste that list into this document. So I'll start Excel, I'll type a 1 right there. I'll go to this fill drop down list and I'll pick series. I'll tell it I want to fill columns. A step value is 1 and a stop value is 1100. Now when you make this document, you'll want to make this go up to probably 10,000. I'll click OK, and now I have a list of numbers from 1 to 1100. I copied that to the clipboard, and now I'm going to go into a text editor and I'm going to paste that in. So now I have text that goes from 1 to 1100. As I said, you're going to want to make this list longer, but when I make this list longer, it's going to cause this video to slow down too much. So I'm going to keep this short and go from 1 to 1100 for the sample document, but you're going to want to go up to probably 10,000. I'll now open my test cardinal German document, test car-de. I'm going to paste that text into this document. And now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on 1, 2, 3. And now this has made a list of 1100 items, and we can see the cardinal text for every item in this list. I'm going to make one more slight modification to this document. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of that hanging indent, and then I'm going to add a tab right here. And this will make it easier to see our cardinal text, and then we can see the numbers over here. I'm now going to save this, and you'll notice, of course, that this is still in English. Well, it's super easy to change this so it's actually in German. What I'll do is I'll close this document. I'm going to go into my folder where it has test-car-de, and I'm going to rename this document, and I'm going to change it to .zip. And now I'm going to unzip this. I'll extract this. We're now looking at the guts of that docx. What I want to do is I need to go into the styles part and make a small change to the styles part and tell it that we want this document to be a German document. So I'll go into the Word document. I'll open up this styles.xml. I'm going to open it in Visual Studio, although you can use any editor that can edit XML. I'm going to format the entire document so that we can see and modify the XML. And here we can see the default language for this document. And here the default language is EN-US, English US, and I'm going to change this to DE-DE. Now, this is the case for Latin languages. If you're doing an implementation for an Asian language, you're going to want to change this particular language culture setting right here. If you are doing a complex script language, in other words, a right to left language, you're going to want to change this particular language culture setting right there. But just by changing this to DE-DE, we've now changed this document from English to German. So I'm going to close this down, and now I have to go back in and re-zip this up and make it back into a docx. So I'm in the Word folder. I just go back one folder. I want to be in the folder where content types.xml is in the folder that I'm looking at. I want this content types.xml to be at the root of the zip file that is the docx. So now I'm going to select everything in that folder, and I'm going to say send it to a compressed zipped folder, and I'm going to change the name to test-car because we're looking at cardinal text, and DE because we're looking at German, and I'm going to say .docx because I want it to be a docx, not a zip file. It, of course, gives me the notice that if I change a file name extension, the file might become unusable. I do want to change it. So now I've got a document here that is in German that has cardinal text. I'm going to copy that out, and I'm going to go up one directory, so I'm in my HTML converter directory, and paste it. So now it's sitting here with test01 and test02 and so on. I can now get rid of test-car-de.zip. I don't need that guy. And I also can get rid of this folder that we created, test-car-de. Now, of course, if you are familiar with the OpenXML package editor power tool, you're also able to make this exact same change in the OpenXML package editor power tool. Now, let's go into our test-car-de. And sure enough, we can now see that this document is in German, and it has 1, 2, and 3 in German right here. Now, one thing that is going to make it easier to do this implementation is, in addition to having this docx that is in German and shows 1, 2, 3 in German, I'm going to also save it as an HTML file using Word. So I'll go to Web Page Filtered, and I'm going to save it test-car-de.htm. Save that. It gives me the requisite warning. And here is the test-car-de. I'm going to drag that onto Visual Studio. Here's the XML that Word generated. And now we can see right here is EINS and ZWEI and so on. So what this does is this gives me an easy place to go copy and paste the text for the language that I'm doing an implementation for. So the next thing that I can do is I have 1 through 19 here. I can just come over here and I can say I want this EINS. I'm going to copy that and go here, select that, and I'm going to paste that in there. And then I'll copy this. I'm doing Control-C now. It's a little bit easier than doing the menu. I'll select this and paste it in there. And then I'll copy this and go right here, select that, and paste that in there. So I've now changed my array of strings 1 through 19 so that the first 3 entries in the string, in other words, items 1, 2, and 3 in the string are EINS, ZWEI, and DREI. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to lowercase. And the reason why is the way that this algorithm works is it does everything in lowercase, and then the last thing it does before returning the value is it changes the first string of the result to uppercase, and then the remaining is going to continue to be in lowercase. So that way, if we have 200, the TWO, the T is capitalized. If we have 50, then the F on 50 is capitalized, and so on. This will give us the actual correct results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to the Edit menu, and I'm going to go to Advanced, and I'm going to say that I want to make this all be lowercase. So now, from here on, this is still in French, but this is going to suffice to show you how to do this implementation. So I'll save this. Now I'm going to come over here. I've set up my list item implementations properly over here. I have set up my GetListItemText_DE and the GetListItemTextGetter_DE to properly have these 3 strings here. I can now save everything, and I can run it. I believe I can now run this, and it will convert that 4th document so that 1, 2, and 3 are now going to come out in German, just because test-car-de is a German language document, and those numbers are ordinal text, and they are 1, 2, 3 in that ordinal text. So let's look at the results of doing this conversion. I'll go to the bin and I'll go to debug, and here's test-car-de. I can just do this in an easy fashion. I'll turn on the preview and click on test-car-de. And sure enough, we can see up here that items 1, 2, and 3 are now in German. And of course, from here on, everything's in French. So this is where a German speaker needs to take over and put together an implementation of this method that properly spits out the ordinal text for every number. I believe that we need to go from 1 to 10,000. I don't know of any example of why we need to go above 10,000. I think it would be a somewhat strange document to have ordinal text in list items that go above 10,000. Generally, these run to, 50 or 100 or 200 items. It seems to me it would be a strange document to go up to 10,000 numbered items in one list. But other point is, no sooner do I say, why would anybody need to have a list item with more than 10,000 items? And someone would say, well, why does anyone ever need more than 640K bytes for a program? Someone probably somewhere needs more than 10,000. Anyway, we should make these implementations as complete as possible. So you can now see I've gone through the entire process from start to end of making an implementation that is a very partial implementation of German. So what I've done is I made a new module, GetListItemText_DE. I went into the example here, this HtmlConverter 01, and I added an entry into this dictionary, list item implementations. And then I went into my implementation and I made the appropriate changes to at least output 1, 2, and 3 in German. From that point on, we need to go in and make this be a complete implementation for German. I am going to make a complete list of all of the language culture implementations that we need, and as each one of you volunteer to take on a particular language culture implementation, I'll keep track of this online in the blog post that references this video. We don't want to duplicate efforts, so what I'm going to encourage you to do is look into the table that is in this blog post that this video references. You can find the link to that blog post in the comments below this video on YouTube, or you probably came to this video on YouTube from OpenXML Developer. So you can look at that table and see if anyone has volunteered to make an implementation of GetListItemText for your particular language and culture. And if no one has, please volunteer for this and make one of these. It's actually a fun bit of coding, and you'll be able to make the HTML converter for your particular language and culture spit out better HTML, more accurate HTML, because numbered lists that use ordinals, ordinal text, and cardinal text will be accurate for your language and culture. I'm sure that people will have further questions. I'm always available to answer questions with regards to this. You can always contact me at eric@ericwhite.com or contact me through openxmldeveloper.org. I am going to make a forum on OpenXML Developer just for this HTML converter module, because I think this is going to be one of the most important pieces of code that people are going to want to use. And that's about all I need to cover in this particular video. Thanks for watching.